I think the biggest challenge is going to be keeping that focus across society. It's a question of how our security colleagues keep that whole society approach, which is really where STX and SCTX and others come in. It's about our small businesses taking heed of the advice and guidance that is out there. Are they looking at their businesses not just from a business stroke licensing point of view? So this whole issue about the attacks on clubs, nightclubs, pubs, etc. All those premises are licensed and regulated around the sale of alcohol, misuse of alcohol, not on how safe they are. And I know that some of the changes that the police service are looking, maybe not bringing in statutorily, although I think they would like to, but actually through education, saying to these people that you run a club, okay, we know you're really good on the licensing issues and all the other bits that go with it, but where's your safe zone? Where's your evacuation plans? What happens if there's an attack outside? Do you lock the doors? And all the conundrums we saw during London Bridge, Borough and such, do we shut people in? Do we shut people out? What do we do? Those small businesses need that help. So I think the real challenges are at that community level, and we've just seen there's no funding there at the moment, or inadequate funding. The other challenge as well, of course, is we're now starting to see many of our homegrown people that have gone to other parts of the world, been radicalised, been trained, whatever, or the widows of jihadists and others now we're reading about starting to come back into the country. Are there the funds now to follow these people up? The vast majority, I'm sure, will come back, they will actually say, that was horrible, get on with their lives, but you only need a few, and they foment within society more unrest, more radicalisation. That fuels a right-wing response, and then we get this horrible mix. So again, the circumstances are still there. We haven't, by any means, overcome the root of the problem. Doing great work at the top, chasing some stop people at the end, presumably stopping atrocities. We now really need to be working at that grassroots, at the community level, tracking all these people, and that needs funding. I actually think that the standout event for me was the fact that there wasn't a standout event. There was no major atrocity in the UK, which is a good thing, and I think that underlines the hard work that goes on in the counter-terrorist community across the board, from the police, the security service and others. The reason I think of that as a standout event, in my experience, the longer we go from the last atrocity, not the more complacent we become, but we start to turn our thoughts to other things. Security starts to get a little bit more lax, people don't worry quite so much, and that then becomes a bigger problem for the next one. And we also have this habit in the UK, we always look back to the last atrocity, the last event, and we work on that, and then we're caught out because something totally new comes along, a new mode of working. Of course, we've seen that in recent years with, just hire a car, drive a van into a crowd of people, get a kitchen knife and attack people. So, for me, it's a standout in as much as, the year before we were focused on some of those horrible events up and down the country. Suddenly we were, that's good, nothing's happened. Our colleagues in the security world are working their socks off. We know that, we see that in the news. The old adage, we have to be lucky all the time. The terrorist only has to be lucky that once. So, a bit of an odd answer, I think, in some respects, but I'm looking at it from a more holistic point. When something horrible happens, everybody's on edge. Everybody takes a bit more precautions, they're a bit more secure. People don't go out for a while, do they? You see that sometimes on the underground after 7/7, nobody uses the train. But eventually life goes back on. And the last thing most of us want to do when we go out is think, well, I might be blown up tonight, or this might happen, so I'm going to sit with my back to the wall. We don't want to live our lives that way, which is again why we rely on the police and the security services to keep us safe. And in many ways that's the way it should be. But it does have this knock-on effect because the police, security services really rely on the public, and more now relying on small business and others to protect us when we go out. But if you're running a small business, you're not going to worry too much about the London Bridge type things, because that's history now, and it's expensive. So do you know what? I'm not going to worry too much about that stuff on there, and just get back to normal. You can't help it. But that's why the police and others always need to be on their toes, trying to remind people, and that's what a lot of these programs that they run now are about. Just try to keep it in the front of our minds. There's never going to be enough money going into that security pool. That's evidenced by the fact that the police have to make some really challenging choices, and as we've seen in the past, sometimes they get those choices wrong. So they don't follow up on the leads and the information or intelligence they have because somebody seems being lower down the pecking order, because they haven't got the funds or the resources or the people to follow everybody. Atrocity happens, and we're all really, really angry and upset and wanting to blame them. So they can never have enough money, but that is a substantial pot of money given the austere times in which we currently live. Overcoming hate crimes, overcoming Islamophobia, overcoming the right wing, overcoming radicalisation. That all happens on the ground. It happens in our communities. And sadly, the money hasn't been there for a number of years now. And you see community policing is creaking at the seams. And they haven't got the time or effort to be put into the counter-terrorist piece, which is, I think is a great loss. And I know that the top end, where the money's going in, rely on the grassroots, the community level, because it's part and parcel of the same, the same response, really. There will be positive outcomes. Yeah. Unfortunately, along the way, there will be a lot of confusion, a lot of muddle, a lot of things that we need put in right. It is crucial for the police and security services that we maintain our access to all those databases that we not only currently dip into, but also put into for the benefit of other European nations and indeed beyond Europe, our Five Eyes colleagues, our American colleagues and others. That's essential. And even if it's only a short term, if we're blind for 3 months or a year or 2 years, that could have horrible long-term effects of people getting into our country and doing things that we don't want. And similarly, British citizens going across Europe or elsewhere causing atrocities. So, for me, my biggest concern about Brexit is the muddle and confusion that we could find ourselves in. Whether there's a deal, no deal, doesn't matter. Our security services need, and we need to be part of, a tighter Europe. That is essential. Whatever it hangs out like, we've got to be and got to have access to that information, that intelligence, and keep that flow going. If you look at the way we run events, not just in the UK, but across the world really, they haven't changed that much. Technology only makes bits of it easier, sometimes it makes bits of it harder. You have too much CCTV, you can get distracted from the real thing. For me, the thing about managing major events is having a good plan, having agencies that work together, that are trained together, that practice together, and know how to respond. Having well-trained staff who know what the plan is, having good intelligence, following that intelligence up with risk assessments. All these are I would call bread and butter basics. And it's when they fail, rather than the technology failing, that you start to see problems. The Manchester Arena bombing, that brought on, if you like, some new issues, in as much as the vast majority of the events I planned, you planned for there being a potential attack in the run-up to or during the event, because the thinking was that is when the terrorists will get maximum publicity. And usually when the event was over, as happened at Manchester, you throw the doors open, you go, phew, thank goodness for that. But of course the Manchester bomber walked in as the gates were opening, not beforehand when all the security's there. So again, it's this, not quite complacency, but we metaphorically breathe that sigh of relief almost too early now. So again, colleagues in that event world will be looking at, well, when does the event actually finish? Because you always have this issue, same as going into an event. The event creates a crowd, and if you put security in, all you do is you put a softer crowd a bit further away from the event, and you can drive a lorry or a bus or anything into that. So events must be intelligence driven. What we never want to be in a position is where people are going to big events, sporting events, concerts, ceremonies, whatever they will be, fearing all the time, and with a level of security that is just so top heavy that you're just not comfortable. You're always looking over your shoulder, and it's a real challenging balance to get right. Technology is always changing and is always being used to good effect. Yeah. There's always a bit of a drag factor because of the cost and research and everything else. And the police and others, security services, the people that run the big stadiums, should be using the latest technology and using it to good effect. The problem comes with any technology is you start to become reliant on the technology rather than the training of the people and how they manage. And of course it's how you react to what the technology is telling you, whatever it is, whether it's facial recognition, CCTV, you know, whether it's movement cameras about this person hasn't moved on top of that bag has been there. It's how you then react to what it's telling you. And sometimes it can send false messages, or you can get too complacent. Or, as often happens with CCTV, you focus in on one camera and you don't see the bigger picture. You don't see what's happening wider out, and somebody should be saying, oh, actually, what's going on over there? You know? So the basics of having that plan, following a model like we do in the UK, in a decision-making model where we go through. So what is the intelligence? Okay, what's the risk from that intelligence? What powers and policies have I got? And what is my plan? And what are my contingencies? And then constantly reviewing that. The technology feeds into that. It doesn't take over. With the traditional procurement systems within UK organisations like the police is they are far too slow and clunky. Terrorism isn't slow and clunky. The terrorist isn't going to wait for us to get some new kit, bed it in, train everybody and move on. We need modern app-based stuff, things that officers can use on the ground next week. You know, you can't wait. We don't know what the next threat is going to be or where it's going to come from. What we do know is it will be different in maybe just subtle changes, but it'll be different from the last one. So we need to be ahead of the game, not chasing the game. Old style procurement is too slow for that. I think government sees that, the police and security services, you know, see that. That whole society approach definitely sees that. You know, young police officers come to work there with their own bits of kit. You know, they are an IT savvy generation, and sometimes, sadly, they laugh at some of the kit available to them professionally. That's got to change, and I think those people are actually driving some of that change, and within government as well. And I think that is crucial and really important. I think it's because SCTX has grown and developed every year and is always looking at that bigger picture and that more whole society approach. So we moved away 5 or 6 years ago, maybe where the emphasis was too much on the niche activity of counter-terror policing and security, bricks and mortar, the hard stuff, and a lot of stuff that, you know, quite rightly, they didn't want to discuss in public. It's an open show. It attracts some of the world's best speakers who come and talk about their experiences. That benefits us in the UK, but also, you know, our international delegates, we have that dialogue. But the way the show has been developing over the years is to say to the police and the security services, who do you want to hear from? What is your agenda? What are we driving? And the police have been moving to this whole society approach. So we need to be attracting small businesses. We need to be attracting schools. We need to be attracting social services. And we need to be having a dialogue. And SCTX is one of the few places where you have that on an annual basis. And it's always been my ambition that we tie in government more to actually lead. This is the contest programme, this is where we see the UK going. Police and the security services saying, okay, from that, and looking at the intelligence and looking at the changing picture, this is what we want to major on. The workers there, so, you know, the police officers and security officers actually do the work on the ground, saying to their bosses, okay boss, you've told me what the threat is, but we need this technology or we need that to help us, we know it's out there. We then go to industry and say to them, this is what we're trying to achieve, this is what we need, what can you do for us? Rather than the traditional style of industry coming and trying to sell stuff that people don't want or need necessarily. And it's growing the show, it's attracting the right people. I think if industry know that the right level of police officers with the right decision-making powers and the right access to the funds are coming from the UK and abroad, the right people from society, you know, the decision makers in that wider aspect are coming, then, you know, they should be flocking to the show because the people are there that they need to speak to and they need to influence. And this is where that great British innovation starts to come in. They're going, so you need this bit of kit, you better leave it to us, we'll be back in 3 months with something I'm sure you'll like. And make it a competition, because that's when we are at our best, when we're all striving to do something for the greater good.